Welcome to Meaningful Mornings. I've now completed around 40 mornings of one with ones with you. And a lot of you have shared with me that as you join Meaningful Mornings, that a family member or friends are in the background, whether in a car or at a workplace. How many of you are experiencing this? Your family member is hidden right now from the camera. For me, it's always the case. There's people that are around me, people who are inside, the windows are open, and so on. And these seekers were telling me how their family members, their friends, they also are evolving with Meaningful Morning. And my mind drifted to, in this example, how effective secondhand smoke is. Yes, if I smoke cigarettes in my home, really that means my wife and kids are smoking too. That obviously being in the negative. Now you think about this in the positive, how you being part of Meaningful Mornings is effective for those who are around you. Whether they actively internalize this or passively internalize this. So when we quantify that 500 seekers join Meaningful Mornings, maybe it's much more. You can't quantify it. Bhagavad Gita commenced in chapter 2, verse 11. Until then, many thinkers, commentators, they don't write about the previous 57 verses. Bhagavad Gita is completed in chapter 18, verse 66. You all voted for that, correct? That's how powerful your vote is. You decide when Bhagavad Gita is completed. Sharing more reflections on chapter 18, verse 66, and what is being shared now and in the forthcoming verses. The primary relationship of a jiva, in English that means individual, is with Jagadishvara. That means divinity. My primary relationship as an individual is with divinity. Now, as you reflect on where your time goes, yesterday, last week, etc., do you live like that? Do you give this primary relationship your primary time? I don't think we do. And here's where Shri Krishna is encouraging us to live for this primary relationship by prioritizing that and deprioritizing other relationships, other drains on time. Sarva dharma parityajya. Don't make this poetic, make this practical. You give more time to your close friends, correct? Less time to distant friends. And so we're clear about this. I'd shared some thoughts about how there is a transition of will from me to we to he. Remember chapter 6? Me will. Chapter 11? We will. Chapter 18? He will. The more you evolve from me, we, he, the more you are practicing letting go of what's not important, holding on to what's important. The best commentary on the Bhagavad Gita is Srimad Bhagavatam. In Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a portion where Shri Krishna is playing his flute in the middle of the jungle in the middle of the night, and the gopis, those steady, sincere, strong seekers, they're so quiet in their inner world that they're able to hear that distant sound. And when they hear this, they let go of everything they're doing. Those who are sleeping woke up. Those who are cooking just left everything there. And they ran to Sri Krishna in whatever condition they were in, hair combed, not combed, etc. And why I'm sharing this is the best commentary, because that's how we should live. That is the relationship, and that is the responsibility. Pujaswami Tejomayananda shared. For someone who is actively living this verse, for them, out of sight means more in mind. For the person who's not realizing that their primary relationship is with divinity, out of sight, out of mind. But for the person who has realized this, out of sight, in mind. Their Vyoga, or absence of being with divinity, makes them more dedicated, more devoted. That is a sign of a mature love, a mature lifestyle, where it's not about convenience. And we have to, you have to, internalize this, because we're in the final 10 verses of the entire Bhagavad Gita now. Soon you will feel you have studied the Bhagavad Gita. You will only know that if there's a change in your viveka, or prioritization. Sarva dharma parityajya. One can only renounce what they are not. I can renounce my hair. I can renounce my clothes. But I can't renounce me, correct? You can only renounce what you are not, and that's what Sri Krishna is sharing. Renounce what is not essential to you. I'm reading some writing from Pujaswami Chinmayananda about this. Fine, but I wanted to read to you. I can't find it. So, what exactly then is the dharma of a human? The color of the skin, the innumerable, endless varieties of emotions and thoughts, the nature, the conditions, and the capacities of the body, mind, and intellect. These are the non-essential factors in the human personality, as against the touch of life, the divine consciousness, expressed through them all. Without the Atma, humans cannot exist. It is the truth which is the basis of existence. Therefore, the essential dharma of a human is the divine spark of existence, the infinite Lord. Sarva dharma parityaja. That is a tactile message, that is a relative message, that is an absolute message. This verse cannot be just checked off, like I heard it, I wrote it. This has to be lived at all levels. Offering you one more reflection before we continue. I had asked all of you to reflect on the difference between having low self-esteem and humility. From an external perspective, they almost seem the same. The person with low self-esteem doesn't talk a lot. The person who's humble also doesn't talk a lot. But how do you really know the difference? The person with low self-esteem, they think of themselves as an individual more than the person who has regular self-esteem or high self-esteem. An inferiority complex is simply another point on the graph in terms of ego. Whereas with humility, you don't think of yourself as an individual. You know yourself in reference to divinity, and that is what causes that humility. These are all reflections on how to live. Verse 66. In verse 67, Sri Krishna shares, what's holding you back from living, verse 66, is those who don't engage in tapa. Tapa means those who are not trying, those who don't engage in bhakti. Bhakti means not dedicating yourself to trying. Those who are not engaged in shushusha. Shushusha means active listening. Being open to these teachings can be real if I try them in a dedicated way. One will not live verse 66 if they're engaged in asuya. Asuya means the one who doesn't have faith. So naturally, one should be anasuya to have faith in what is being shared. Verse 66 is the completion of Bhagavad Gita. Verse 67 describes the one who is not ready for Bhagavad Gita, to live Bhagavad Gita. More thoughts are now shared in verse 68 about, in this case, it is not the student of Bhagavad Gita, but the teacher of Bhagavad Gita. Ya imam paramam guhyam madbhakteshu abhidhasyati bhaktim mai param kritva mame veshyate samshayaha. Joy. First quarter. Yaha, the one, in this reference a teacher, a guide. Imam means this, the Bhagavad Gita, the teachings. Paramam guhyam, these teachings are the most secretive, they're the most close to oneself. Here's a reflection I need you to understand. Our nature is described as praptasya prapti. That means we've already gained it. We have forgotten this, and so we have to remember what our nature is. The implication of this is you don't have to act to gain or know your nature. You just have to remember that this is your nature. I keep a handkerchief with me. Sometimes my pockets are bulky and I'm looking for a handkerchief. I don't have to go get one. I just have to know or remember I already have one. Then I can use it. That's why this knowledge is most effective. Mat bhakteshu abhidhasyati. This knowledge is being shared with my bhaktas, my students. These are Sri Krishna's students. These students don't belong to a particular teacher or guide. A couple of mornings ago, I was wearing my Pearl Jam t-shirt. I'm going to see them in a few months, so I'm preparing. See how much preparation is needed for life. And Sheila had bought me a shirt, and there's two circles that are interconnected, and underneath it says, never give up. And the implication of this is that's how our meaningful relationships should be. It appears as two, but really it's one. And one should never give up. That's what it means to teach the Bhagavad Gita. It's not about grammar. It's not about the connection of verses. A teacher, a guide who never gives up on sharing, 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 because then the student also starts to never give up. Are you catching that culture, that detail? If the teacher is passive, the student's going to be passive. Third quarter, Bhakti Mai Param Kritva. And why does such a guide teach like this? Because they treat it not as teaching, but as their offering of bhakti, as devotion. A guide is not in reference to the student, a guide is in reference to their presence or purpose. A seeker was asking me recently about how I, Vivek, have to shift from engaging in a meeting, then teaching, then building a fort with Vyasa, then finding Shuka's stuffy, etc., etc., etc. How do you not get tired from shifting from responsibility to responsibility? And I told him, I'm just a channel. I'm a channel where I'm doing this for my divinity, and my divinity is using me as this channel, and so I engage. But it's not my responsibility. Whatever happens, happens. My divinity is doing this, so I don't linger from meeting to teaching to Vyasa to Shuka. Like your radio channel, if you listen to 97.7 and then go to 101.1, is there a lingering that happens? It's just a channel. It goes from here to there. So for all of us, instead of doing what you're doing for your check or your governor, do it for your divinity and watch how tireless, how never give up you start to feel. Finally, Mam, Eshati, the one who teaches in this culture, will become me. Asamshayaha. There's no doubt about this. This is a truth. This is a fact. Here's my final reflection on this verse, and I'm having a tough time with these verses. My mind's still on verse 66, and now you're making me teach 68. We come to think that I'm not Krishna, and then I'm going to become Krishna. This is a gradual feeling. Every day, every week, you just feel more like Shri Krishna and less like Prince Arjuna. Eshati. Gradually. From inspiration to application, your application was, what is holding you back from being Shri Krishna? My reflection on this is, when we feel pleasure, possession, and position still have more of a reality than peace, then we invest accordingly. Our resources, time, and effort go into pleasure, possession, position instead of peace. Your application for this morning, we are in the final 10 verses of the Bhagavad Gita. I want you to identify what are the 10 factors that have made this experience possible for you. What specific 10 factors have led you to experience this? I'll tell you one of them is Zoom. Correct? List them out. Shanti, 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 be joy.